as you know, I think most of you know, there are scriptures that are read for each of the different festivals. And the one that's read for Sukkot is Ecclesiastes or Kohelet. So I have a handout on Kohelet. We're going to go through this book, just kind of looking at some themes of the book. And I have a handout for that I'll give you. Prior to that, we're going to show this in just a moment. I need to let you know our insurance individuals contacted me, and I'm going to be sending you each of the families, I'll be sending you a recommended addition to our bylaws. I have to put it into our bylaws. We've talked about this before. Protection for really the congregation. I want to protect the congregation for future reference regarding somebody coming to me and asking that I would solemnize same-sex marriages. I won't do it. I would refuse to do it. So, and I can personally refuse to do that. However, since I am remunerated by the congregation, they could sue the congregation. Okay. So, in order to protect the congregation and for us to have the coverages that we need in our insurance, we're going to have an addendum to our bylaws that just basically says that I won't do that. Okay. So I'll be sending that out to you for your perusal to look at, and then get back to me if you don't like the wording of it or if you think it's whatever. Like I said, it's just basically to protect the congregation from any insurance coming against the entity of Beit Tefillah and suing the congregation, which obviously have deeper pockets. So, yes.
The letter you send out will already be looked over by a lawyer first.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I've already been talking to a lawyer about how we go about this. So, yeah, I'm in contact with our attorney to talk about what we need to say and how to cover our bases as much as we can. It's sad that we've come to the day where we have to do this. But unfortunately, if somebody were to come and ask me to do that, and then I refuse to do that, then they could bring a lawsuit against us for what's it called?
Bias.
Bias. In other words, bias.
Discrimination.
So, in order to protect, yes.
This is important because their actually groups are targeting faith-based groups
right.
for that purpose.
We know
so
that
they know they're
groups
going
are being targeted.
to do it.
But they know that they can come and ask for it and refuse, and then they can just bring a lawsuit.
Yeah,
it's about exposure plus money plus a lot of other things. So, in order to guard as much as we can legally, we want to have a clause in the bylaws that just says this is what we will do and not do. Like I said, it will be worded from an attorney. So we're trying to cover as many of the bases as we can, so that if that in the inevitability that it happens, and it will happen at some point, that we at least in our bylaws said that that's where we stand, so that we can in a courtroom we can say that this is our charter. Okay. If I don't have it in the charter, then they can say, well, how do we know that's what you believe? Okay. All right, so we're going to show a quick video, actually quick, 30-minute video on Sukkot. This was kind of interesting. I had not caught this before with the festival of Sukkot. So I want you to watch his take on this particular festival as we're coming to the end of it. We have 2 more days left of it. But I think you're going to enjoy this video.
Hi there, this is Rabbi David Foreman, and you are watching Aleph Beta. Sukkot is right around the corner, and we all know how to celebrate it. Mainly, we build these little huts, and we live in them for 7 days. But why do we do that? What are we actually commemorating on this day? And here's where we kind of get into a bit of a quandary. To see that quandary, I'd like to play a little game with you. It's called Big Deal, Little Deal. Here's how the game works. We're going to take each of the 3 main festivals of the Talmud, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, and we're going to ask ourselves, what event does this holiday commemorate? And is the event a big deal or a little deal? So let's play our game. We'll start with Pesach, Passover. What event does it commemorate? Well, that's easy enough. It celebrates our exodus from slavery, the night we left Egypt. All right, so what do you say? Would you call that event a big deal or a little deal?
Big deal.
Well, I don't know about you, but I would say that's like the biggest of deals, right? On a scale from 1 to 10, Pesach's event is like a 10. There's plagues, blood, darkness, hail, fire. The sea splits in this climactic moment of triumph. Death to the bad guys, salvation to the good guys. It's a very big deal. Plus, it's our Independence Day, the very beginning of our nation. All right, what about Shavuot? How big a deal is the event commemorated by Shabbat? Well, on a scale from 1 to 10, it's like an 11, right? I mean, Shavuot celebrates the moment an entire nation rendezvoused with God. The Almighty literally descended into our world on the top of the mountain to give us a document that would define our destiny, that would shape the course of world civilization. Without that event, where would we be? What would we be? We'd be no more than a nomadic tribe in the wilderness. We'd be missing a mission. We'd be missing a legacy. That's a really big deal. All right, so let's go to Sukkot. So what does this holiday commemorate? Well, we sleep in booths, and we do that, the Torah tells us, L'man yedu dorotechem, so that your generations will know. Because Sukkot hoshavti Yisrael, that I caused the children of Israel to dwell in booths. Don't see when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. All right, we sleep in booths, because we all slept in booths in the desert. So let's play big deal, little deal. On a scale from 1 to 10, everybody, how big a deal is that booth thing? I'm pretty sure it's like, I don't know, 3.5. I mean, it's all very nice to sleep in booths. Certainly nothing against that, but do we have to have a whole holiday commemorating that? So you're probably shaking your head right now. Oh, come on, Rabbi Foreman, the sukkahs, they aren't just about little huts. I seem to remember that the Talmud says something about miraculous clouds that protected the Israelites in the desert. And you know, that's actually true. The Talmud records a dispute as to what the holiday Sukkot celebrates. One view is that it celebrates those booths that we slept in, but another Talmudic view is that the holiday commemorates what it calls Ananei HaKavod, clouds of glory that envelop the people, protected them in the desert. So suppose we accept this second Talmudic view, that the holiday commemorates these miraculous clouds. Well, we certainly needed those clouds to survive. I mean, without divine protection of some sort, like those clouds, we would have perished in that uninhabited wilderness. We would have been killed by enemies or maybe wild animals. Isn't that worth celebrating? And, you know, to tell you the truth, you're right. But getting into that Talmudic explanation actually opens up some other problems. For example, does the Talmud really mean to tell us that we don't even know what we're celebrating in Sukkot, that it's actually subject to a dispute? I mean, think Passover, right? We know what we're celebrating. It's not like two views of the Talmud debate it. No one says Passover was really about celebrating God flying the Israelites out of Egypt on magic carpets or something. The facts of the Exodus, they aren't in dispute. How can something as basic as what we are celebrating on another holiday, on Sukkot, be open to dispute? So I'd like to suggest a theory here. Maybe there is a big deal in Sukkot, and it can be apprehended if we find its missing event. Here's what I mean by that. If you look at all the other holidays, you find that generally they commemorate a particular event, limited in time, that you can actually point to. I mean, Pesach, for example, it commemorates the night we went free. That's a particular event. Shavuot commemorates the moment we stood at Sinai and we received the Torah. But Sukkot at face value kind of breaks the pattern. It appears to commemorate 40 years worth of booth sleeping. Day in, day out, booths one night, booths the next. You know, is it really the case we have a holiday here that doesn't actually commemorate an actual event that you could point to, just like one thing, there it is? But maybe there is a discrete event with Sukkot too. And maybe if we can find it, we could see what the big deal of the holiday is all about. Let's return to that verse in the Torah. that verse that describes why does we celebrate Sukkot. Let's see what it tells us. The Torah says we celebrate Sukkot, so that generations will know, Ki basukkot hoshavti et bnei Yisrael, that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths. Behotzi'i otam me'eretz Mitzrayim, when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Now listen carefully to those words. When I brought them out of the land of Egypt. What exactly is the Torah saying right there? It sounds like the Torah was talking about a particular point in time, right? God made us sleep in booths when he brought us out of Egypt, not 40 years in the desert. That was way after he brought us out of Egypt. Seemingly, if we take the words of the verse really seriously, it was right when he brought us out that we slept in those booths. But wait a second, that sounds crazy. Is this whole booth commemoration thing really all going back to the very moment of the Exodus, like the first night? To find out, let's go back to the Torah's own description of those very first moments of leaving Egypt, way back in the book of Exodus. Is there anything there that involved Sukkot in some way? So listen to this verse. It describes the very beginning of Israel's journey away from Egypt. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael me'Ramses Sukkota. And the children of Israel, they journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot, about 600,000 men on foot, besides children. So read that verse again. Where did they travel to when they were leaving Ramses? They traveled to a place called Sukkot. Now, isn't that quite a coincidence? Sukkot just happens to be the name of the very first place that Israel encamped on their very first night after leaving Egypt. And you've got to ask yourself, is that a coincidence? I mean, we have a Sukkot holiday that supposedly celebrates God causing us to dwell in Sukkot, quote, when he took us out of Egypt. And lo and behold, right when God took us out of Egypt, the Torah mentions we slept at a place called Sukkot. Could it be that the holiday commemorates where we slept that first night in the desert? In other words, to be perfectly frank with you, what I'm suggesting is actually something that kind of seems radical. When the Torah says that the holiday commemorates God having made us dwell in Sukkot, maybe the verse isn't actually referring to what we slept in. Maybe it's referring to a place we slept at, a place called Sukkot. But wait a second, you might say. What are you trying to tell me? That all those rabbis, the ones in the Talmud who talked about Sukkot celebrating sleeping in booths, the ones who talked about the clouds of glory, you're trying to tell me that they were all just wrong, that they missed this obvious implication of the verses? And anyway, Foreman, let's just say you're right, that a Sukkot Hoshavti means that God settled us in a place called Sukkot. Why should we celebrate that? Who cares where we slept that first night we left Egypt? I mean, look, every place has got to have a name. This place, it happened to get called Sukkot. Great, time to feast. That's what we're celebrating. So here would be my response to that. The theory I'm suggesting to you, it doesn't actually oppose what the rabbis of the Talmud say. On the contrary, I'd argue, it's the basis for what they say. It's their point of departure. In other words, the rabbis of the Talmud, they too understood that the holiday commemorates our sleeping in a place called Sukkot. The rabbis were just making the following obvious inference. Why do you think the place got called that? Why, of all things, would you call a place Sukkot? Basically, the Hebrew equivalent of shantytown. Probably because people made these little shanties, these little Sukkot huts to sleep in. And here's the proof of the pudding. It turns out that here in Exodus is not the first time the Torah mentions to us a place by the name of Sukkot. Way back in Genesis, we encountered a place named that too. When Jacob left Laban's house, exiting his own personal slavery in his father-in-law's domain, one of the first places he came to was a place called Sukkot. And the Torah tells us why it was called that. Jacob built little huts there for his cattle, huts called Sukkot. And the Torah tells us that's why he called the name of the place Sukkot. So basically, in Exodus, it seems like the Torah is just kind of using shorthand to get its point across. It's basing itself upon what it assumes we already know from the book of Genesis. In other words, the verse says, the Israelites, like Jacob before them, they also exited slavery. And like Jacob before them, they also had lots of cattle. And the very next thing we hear about is that like Jacob before them, the people slept in a place called Sukkot. So how did the place get its name? That's left implied. Obviously, it's because they built Sukkot there, little huts for their cattle, just like Jacob did in similar circumstances. The difference between the people and Jacob, if anything, is that while Jacob had built a house for himself and huts for the cattle, when it came to the people living in Egypt, there weren't separate domiciles for people and cattle. Rather, Basukot Hoshavti. It was in Sukkot, shanties made for cattle, that we humans slept. Sukkot here is place, but it's place because of those shanties. That night, everybody, cows, sheep, people, everybody slept in those shanties. And that, according to Leviticus, is what we celebrate. God says, I made you sleep in Sukkot that first night. That's where I settled you. Okay, but now let's get back to that second objection I just raised with you. Let's say we grant that the Torah is asking us to celebrate a single night's encampment in the desert in little huts. So, why was that really such a big deal? Why would we be celebrating for generations what happened that very first night? Is that really the big missing event? The answer is that night in those huts, it actually was a momentous turning point. Come with me for a minute back into the Torah's description of that very first night. You'll find a curious thing. Right after we hear about that first night in a place called Sukkot, the Torah tells us something else that seems fairly trivial. It takes a step back to give us what looks like an accounting of the total years we spent in slavery. Moshe b'nei Israel, asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim. At the time the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt, 30 shana v'arba was 430 years. Now, why would the Torah do that? Why would it bother to tell us this right now as it's chronicling the night the nation spent in Sukkot? I mean, why is the Torah suddenly interested in playing accountant with us, making sure you know exactly how many years they spent in Egypt? The answer, I think, will kind of jump out at you if you pay attention to another phrase in those words I just read to you. Don't get distracted by the 430 years. Instead, look at the verse's first words. Moshe b'nei Israel, asher yashvu b'Mitzrayim. I'll translate it literally for you. And the settling downs that the children of Israel settled down while they were in Egypt were 430 years. The Torah is establishing a very interesting contrast for you, the reader here. For 430 years, the people had been settled down. They had a real roof over their heads. They might have been guests in Egypt. They might even have been slaves, but they knew that when they got home at night, they had a reliable shelter over their heads, a real home in which to sleep. They knew where the next meal was coming from. In an instant, all that changed. It changed that very first night of freedom when they found themselves sleeping in those cattle pens alongside the sheep and the cows. It changed when, after 430 years of being settled, of having a moshav in Egypt, they were settled by God into these little cattle pens in the desert. It all changed that night in Sukkot. Stop and think for a minute. What must that night have been like? Here they were, the first night away from Egypt. It was the first night they experienced without masters lashing their necks. That night, they breathed in the heady air of freedom. For the very first time in generations, they could come and go as they pleased. They could make choices. On the one hand, it was like living a dream, but the dream was also full of terror. They were in the desert. They had nowhere real to sleep, no home to call their own. They were sleeping with their camel, for goodness sake, right next to Bessie the cow and Spotty the sheep. You could almost imagine what might have been going through their minds. It was ridiculous. What am I doing here? add to the ridiculousness of the situation, the Torah tells us one more thing about that night. It tells us what they ate that night when they were sleeping in the Sukkot. Let's read a little bit more from those verses. And they baked the dough that they brought forth out of Egypt. Unleavened bread, because they didn't have enough time to rise. Because they were cast out of Egypt. They didn't have time to tarry. They didn't even have time to take provisions for the journey. So it was some night that night, under the stars, with not even any decent bread to eat. But you read those verses, you say, one second, wait a minute. They made matzah that first night? You're thinking to yourself, but matzah making isn't a Sukkot activity. It's a Pesach activity. On Pesach, we eat unleavened bread to remember how we rushed out of Egypt. What are we doing here? We piece together all of these clues about this very first night in Sukkot, only to arrive at what, a different holiday? Something really interesting is beginning to emerge, it seems to me. There are two holidays in the Torah, Pesach and Sukkot, that somehow both seem to be commemorating the same event, the very first night that Israel spent alone in the desert. The only difference between these holidays seems to be one of perspective. One holiday, Pesach, commemorates the first night we spent in the desert from the perspective of food. We remember what we ate that night. The other holiday, Sukkot, commemorates the night in terms of where we slept. The two basic needs in life are, of course, food and shelter. We had them both in abundance in Egypt, bread for the eating and a real roof over our heads. We had those necessities, but we were missing freedom. It seemed free, the bread and the roof. There was a price. We were slaves. Suddenly, in an instant, everything changed. God caused 10 plagues to descend upon our tormentors, and suddenly, our masters were powerless to keep us tethered to them anymore. We could go now. The question is, would we? We made a choice the moment we left Egypt, a crazy choice if you stop to think about it. We made a choice to embrace freedom, to accept God's invitation to become his nation, and to travel to a land that he promised us, a land that we had never seen, all without any real preparation. There was no logistical infrastructure for that journey. Imagine tasking a modern-day Army Corps of Engineers with the duty to lay the infrastructure for a walk through the desert that would last 40 years, and 2.3 million people would be taking the journey. The project would cost billions of dollars. You'd have to set up roads, plumbing, Safeways, malls for clothing, a few 7-Elevens for good measure. But none of that would be in place for the Israelites' journey. It was a choice thrust on them in an instant. This is your chance. Are you ready to go? The choice to leave can't be described as anything other than a supreme act of faith. We quite literally placed ourselves in the embrace of the divine. We said, in effect, you're inviting us, God, and we're going. Our most basic needs, they're now in your hands. The text that tells us of the journey to Sukkot emphasizes the tentative nature of that journey by telling us God will say to them, they haven't even packed any provisions. There they were that first night, sleeping under the stars in the ridiculous cattle pens they set up for their animals. And there they were, eating their last morsel of half-baked bread, realizing with stunning clarity that there was no more where that came from. There they were for the first time, utterly, totally in God's embrace. That was the night that these two holidays, Pesach and Sukkot, are celebrated. We asked earlier what the big deal was about Sukkot. Making Sukkot doesn't seem to be as earth-shattering an event as Revelation or as the Exodus, but I think the answer is it was earth-shattering what happened that first night. Earth-shattering in a quiet, terrifying kind of way. The act of faith is always earth-shattering. The pit in your stomach as you look around in the desert and feel all alone, only to have it dawn on you that you're not really alone. There is someone else there, one other being. It's God. It's just you and God now. You've just left everything behind that you took for granted, and you've made this harrowing choice to completely rely on God. If God doesn't come through here for you, the next night could just be your last. The prophet Jeremiah says something to us about God's memories of that first night. Go and call out to Jerusalem, saying, Ko Amar Hashem, thus says God, Zacharti Lach I remember the deeds of kindness of your youth, Abad Kulotayich, the love of your bridal days, Lechtech Achar Lamidbar, when you followed me out into the wilderness, Be'eretz Lo Zruah, in a land that was desolate, it couldn't grow anything. That night, it was a big deal. It was a big deal for us. It was a big deal for God. It was the night we gave God the gift of trust. I mentioned to you before that there's a dispute among the sages as to what we celebrate.
All right. I like this stuff. So, somebody hand this stuff out for me.
Sorry, I had a comment.
Oh, I thought you wanted that.
It still has 8 minutes left.
No, we'll hold off on it. That's good. Got the gist of what I wanted to get to. Isn't that cool though?
Yes.
It's interesting how his perspective. So the handout coming around is on. Oh, you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Or comment.
So that was the night when they were learning to rely on God. We've been learning sign language, and the sign for home is where you eat and where you sleep. So they had the food and the shelter were both the two big commemorations.
Absolutely. You have a good catch. Yeah. Both those necessary.
Yeah,
Home is where you eat, generally. So, real quick, the text that we look at for Sukkot is the text of Ecclesiastes in Greek or Kohelet in Hebrew. So I want to look just for a few moments at an overview, a flyover, if you will, of this particular book, giving you these notes. Kohelet talks about different things that we pursue. Things that we pursue in this life. And he opens by saying, vapor of vapors, said the preacher, thinnest of vapors. He's not trying to say vanity, although that's what a lot of your translations say. It's the idea of transitory. He says, I say the Hebrew word translated vapor or breath is the Hebrew word havel. The primary idea behind the word havel is transitory or fleeting. For example, Proverbs 21:6 says, the getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor, havel, the pursuit of death. Solomon, the third king of Israel, is credited with writing the book of Kohelet, which in Greek became known as Ecclesiastes. Solomon experienced life to the fullest, and the book of Kohelet records his thoughts on pursuing the things that most people think are valuable. So the first one, the pursuit of money. Kohelet 4:8. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither son nor brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, and for whom am I laboring, and depriving myself of pleasure? This too is a vapor and a grievous task. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor will he who loves abundance with its income. This too is havel. It's fleeting. There's a lot of people out there who pursue money. They want one more dollar, one more buck, and just a little bit more, And Kohelet says, look, just because you make a little bit more money, oftentimes you leave it to more people. Either it flies away or you leave it to other people. So if you make your whole life about the pursuit of money, you're on the wrong path. Okay? Then you say, well, what about power? There's a lot of people that pursue power. Kohelet 2:8 in 19 says, thus I hated all the fruit of my labor for which I labor under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool? Yet he will have control over all the fruit of my labor, which I have labored by acting wisely under the sun. This too is Havel. They say, well, I want power. I want to be able to control things. It's like, well, problem is you're going to leave it to somebody behind you, and you don't know whether they're going to do good with it or not. And it's fleeting. I mean, if you think about our world, go back and just think about your own lifetime and look at the people that were in power and how they are not in power today. We could name all kinds of names of people that used to be in power, and look how fleeting, how transitory that power was. They're no longer leaders. They're no longer world leaders. People at the top of their game, or people that were at the best of what they did. Let's say you're the best at whatever. How long is that going to last? 10, 15, 20 years, maybe, tops. So power is fleeting, it's transitory. It's like money. So Kohelet, Ecclesiastes comes to say to us, look, if all you're pursuing is power, you're going to pursue something that is chasing the wind. You'll never get there. Well, what about occupation? For what does a man get in all his labor in this striving with which he labors under the sun? Because all his days his task is painful and grievous. Even at night his mind does not rest. This too is a vapor. Then he says in Kohelet 4:4, I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is a vapor and a striving after wind. In other words, if your identity is wrapped up in what you do, that is vapor. Because you're not going to be able to do it forever. But a lot of people wrap themselves up into some type of identity. Well, this is what I do. This is my job. This is my occupation. And that's who I am. But an occupation should not identify you. Because at the end of the day, it's fleeting. You can't stay on the same job forever. So it moves. It's transitory. A lot of people do identify themselves by, first thing two guys meet, inevitably. Two guys, now women may be different, but guys you meet, first thing you say to another guy is, so, what do you do? I.e., what is your occupation? I get on planes and sit by somebody, and the first thing they say to you is, so, what do you do? Well, I do this, and they go, what do you do? I do that. And this is my identity. This is who I am. The problem is, that's not going to last. That's not going to last at the end of the day. Money's not going to last. Power's not going to last. Occupation is not going to last. Okay, so then you got people like this, and you know the people we're talking about here. This next category. They pursue health. They say, well, in order to keep all the money I have, to keep the power I have, and to keep the job I have, I'm going to pursue health. And there's nothing wrong with being healthy. But he said this in Kohelet 3:18 and 19. I said to myself concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order for them to see that they are but beasts. For the fate of the sons of men, the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they all have the same breath, and there's no advantage for man over beast, for all is vanity. He's a real populist guy. Positive thinking here. Kohelet 11:9 and 10. It says, rejoice, young men, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of your manhood, and follow the impulses of your heart and the desire of your eyes. Yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things. So remove grief and anger from your heart, and put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. Here's the problem. Even if you do all the exercise, which is good, even if you take all the medicine, which can be good, can possibly, even if you do all the exercise, time will take its toll. And health will eventually deteriorate. Eventually. So if that's your sole pursuit, and there's a lot of people that pursue health. I mean, we got gymnasiums everywhere. We got, people go to the gym and get a health membership. I'm always surprised, I go to the YMCA. Okay. So you go to the YMCA, and you guys got to go there in January. In January, the place will be packed. I mean, you can't run around the track in January. Towards February, it starts to thin out. In March, it's more thinned out. And by April, all these people that made that were going to pursue health have given up. Now we're just back to the people that were there walking the track to begin with. And again, nothing wrong with pursuing health in and of itself. As long as these aren't the sole things that define you and that you build your life around. Yeah, there was a question. Let me have a question. We'll come back. Hold on. Pursuit of pleasure. Here's one. Here's our culture. This is our culture right here. We're a health and pleasure culture. Kohelet 2:3 says, I explore with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine while my mind was guiding me wisely, and how to take hold of folly until I could see what good there is for the sons of men to do under heaven for the few years of their lives. And then he says in 7:6, for as the crackling of thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool, and this too is futility. There's a lot of people that pursue pleasure. So, well, I want to go have fun. We're gonna go to this event, that event, and I'll just fill my life with having fun. Yeah, nothing wrong with having fun. Nothing wrong with having fun, going nice places and doing nice things, provided that doesn't define you, and that you don't build your whole life around it. But he says at the end of the day, that's not the answer either. Then you got at the bottom of the page there, pursuit of religion. He says, guard your steps as you go to the house of God and draw near to listen, rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools. For they do not know that they are doing evil. Do not be hasty in word or impulsive in thought to bring up a matter in the presence of God. For God is in heaven and you are on the earth. Therefore let your words be few. There's a motto for you. That's a great line. For God is in heaven and you are on the earth. Therefore let your words be few. For the dream comes through much effort, and the voice of a fool through many words. When you make a vow to God, do not be led to pay it, for he takes no delight in fools. Pay what you vow. It is better that you should not vow than you should not vow and not pay. Do not let your speech cause you to sin. Do not say in the presence of the messenger of God that it was a mistake. Why should God be angry on account of your voice and destroy the work of your hands? For in many dreams and in many words there is emptiness. Rather, fear God. So he says, look, here's things you can pursue. You can pursue money. You can pursue power. You can pursue occupation. You can pursue pleasure. And you can pursue religion. And all of them, at the end of the day, are havel. They are fleeting. They are transitory. There is so much change. Now here's the key. What two things have eternality in them? Here we go. He says this. First, find joy with family and friends around a shared table of fellowship.
Amen.
He says this, there is nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen that it is from the hand of God. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given to you under the sun. For this is your reward in life and your toil in which you have labored under the sun. You know what? At the end of the day, marry, have children, enjoy the people that are placed around you, because those are the things, these people are eternal. They have eternality. It's the people that you have around you, especially family, that you should take special care to invest in. To give your life to people, not to money, not to power, not to pleasure, not to religion, not to occupation, but to people. Investing in people, and especially the people that are the closest to you. He says this has reward. this has eternal reward. And the second thing that's close to it is, he says, find joy pursuing obedience to God's commandments. He says the conclusion when all has been heard is fear God and keep his commandments, for this applies to every person. It's the duty of all people. So the commandments of God are eternal. So if you give yourself to pursuit of obedience to God, that has eternal weight. There is no eternal weight at the end of the day. It's not going to matter how much money, how much power, how much religion, how much health. All those other things are they're ephemeral, they're fleeting, they're transitory. So the message of, this is why Sukkot is here, to kind of draw us in at the end with Ecclesiastes to say, pursue two things. First, pursue relationships with family and friends around a shared table. Invest in people. And then the second thing is, build your life around obedience to God's commandments, because the word of the Lord endures forever. It is eternal. It's something that will last. And when you invest in obedience to his commandments, then you have invested in eternality. Things that aren't fleeting, that will be there. People will be there at the end, and the word of the Lord will be there at the end. Power will go away. Fame will go away. Health will go away. Money will go away. Occupations will go away. People will be resurrected. And the word of the Lord will stand forever. So he says, as we come to Sukkot, Ecclesiastes is saying, look, there's all these things you can pursue. And our culture pursues them. Now here's the problem. I think a lot of people within Messianism, within our culture, we find these as things to pursue. Well, if I have a little bit more money, a better job, more power, more health, more pleasure, more religion, if I have more of these things, then I'll be on the fast track to happiness or to enjoyment of life. He says, no, really the thing that brings enjoyment to life is shared fellowship, family and friends around a table, investing in each other's lives, and then pursuit of obedience to God's commandments. That's really the things that you should think about investing in, because all these other things, within 15 to 20 years, go on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things I get in listening to this, find myself getting caught up on, is I think I wrongly tell myself that if I pursue these things on this list a little extra harder, I'll be able to do the stuff on the last part better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I just get, a little more power, a little more money, maybe I'll have that little extra time later to spend with my family and just do a better job doing that stuff. I'll be able to enjoy, the stuff that matters better later.
Yeah, I'm not sure that works. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
but it's like,
yeah.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah, I know,
other
right.
people might have that same.
I hear the struggle. I absolutely hear the struggle. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's not, for me, like, and this has really been speaking to me too, but it's because these days, whatever professional job you have, just seems to consume everything.
Mm-hmm.
The more money you make, the more they expect of you. And there's all these things that kind of hold you to that responsibility of working a lot. And that's, for me, it's hard to draw the line of, because it just seems, it's always on your mind, it's always, just everything you do.
Right.
And it's just really, I would wish I wasn't like that, but it just seems like it's always consuming, and I don't know whatever else to deal with.
Yeah, without stepping back and looking at these things and addressing them and thinking about them, I think we get into automatic pilot mode and just pursue. Like, I want to pursue health, I want to pursue pleasure, I want to pursue power, I want to pursue occupation, and all these things that we pursue, and religion, and and it's like these become drives that are there, and God says, while you're driving to get all that stuff, just understand that it's transitory, it's fleeting, it's It's not eternal. But what is eternal, and what I want you to come back to as we think about this is, my word is eternal. For the word of the Lord will go forth from Zion. For the Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of the Lord. And eternal. It's going to be there. It's going to be there when we step into eternity. As our people who will be resurrected. So what the investment we make in people, the investment we make in understanding and doing God's word, that will have eternal effects. All these other things, you can build, they put it this way, you can either build with wood, hay, and stubble, or you can build with gold, silver, and precious metals. Things that will, when tried by fire, will stand the test. A lot of things we do are going to be burned up. You know, they were transitory, they were fleeting. They weren't things that built eternal. So, I mean, as we come to the close of Sukkot, I mean, I think Ecclesiastes asks us to step back and kind of take inventory and say, what is it about the things that we're doing in life? Are they leading us to eternal things? Or are they leading us to transitory, fleeting things? He's not saying everything is vanity. He's saying it's empty. At the end of the day, will it last? At the end of the day, will it be there? When we come to the end of time, when we step into eternity, will that be there? And the things we're going to look back on and say were the best were the times that we invested in our family and friends, and the times that we learned and did things that God commanded us. So those two things, he says, are lasting. Those two things have eternality. And those are the things that, at the end of the day, we should focus on. Not that we don't have an occupation. Not that you don't have a community of faith. Not that you don't have health. But that those things aren't the center. Those things don't become the center of who you are. That what becomes the center is the Word of God and family and friends that you invest in. Those things become the core, not pleasure and health and all these other things. But those don't become the core of who you are. And the things that you direct your time and energies toward completely. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I mean, look what's happening with families these days, you know, mom and dad don't think I can how things have to be because things are so expensive. But how much family time are they spending with their kids? I mean, because you hear, oh, I have to take my daughter to ballet, you know, all these different things. And they're in the car,
Right.
and there's no real set time for any kind of talking or whatever.
Right.
And because everyone's just so busy and doing stuff.
Right. You know, the best things in life aren't things. You know, we tend to use people and get things. We should acquire things. We should be acquiring friends and using things, and realizing that people are more important than things, and that's a tough thing because we're pursuing all the time. We're like, I gotta get money, I gotta have a job, you know. And I told you about my growing up years where the mantra, and you know, I get it, and I've talked about this before, is you know, you need to get a good education, so you get a good job, so you make good money, so you can have a lot of things. That's kind of the mantra. And we can unknowingly and unwittingly buy into that. Now, again, I want to go back and say there's nothing wrong with education. Nothing wrong with a good job, nothing wrong with good money, nothing wrong with having things. Those things, that in and of itself is not the problem. It's when in the pursuit of that, we neglect the Word of God and squeeze out every week I go to People's Retirement, not People's, but the one in Cape Harbor. And in fact, your grandmother was there. By the way, she loves me. She loves you too. She loves you too. So, but my point is this: that you see these people who have nobody that visits them. They have family, but nobody wants to be around them. You know why? Because they were done. Because they were never a priority. People were never a priority in their life. And now, now that they're older and they're in a retirement home or in a nursing home, nobody comes to visit them. They have, and you ask them, I asked them, how many children do you have? 4. So where do they live? Oh, they all live in the area. Do you think them come visit you? No. You know why? Because they're too busy pursuing. Just the same thing they saw you do. They saw you pursue life. And you had no time for them and no energy for them. So you know what? Why should I have any time and energy for you? I'm pursuing occupation. I'm pursuing power and health. And I got other places to go. And you're down, way down the list, if at all. And I would rather, it seems to me I'd rather my children come and visit me and have them around me than to have so neglected them that there's no relationship there whatsoever, and they don't even want to be around you. They don't have time for you. Yeah, Cat in the Cradle. Yeah, is it Cat Stevens?
No,
No.
that's a state song.
I can hear the song in my head. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Cat Stevens. Harry Chapin.
Harry Chapin. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Hey, I'm just like you, Dad. I got no time for anybody.
Harry Chapin.
Harry Chapin, thank you. I got no time for anybody now. So I'm just saying, look, for those of you that are younger, especially, think in terms of, hey, look, an occupation's great. It's awesome. Power is great, money is great, pleasure is great. Religious, okay, all these things in and of themselves are not bad. Health, sure. But in the end, if you alienate everybody around you, and you have no connection to the Word of God, then you have pursued something that is fleeting. At the end, you have nothing. Because the people go away and won't be around you. The money goes, all that stuff goes. And then what are you left with? He is not poor. He is not poor who is rich in friends. It's people that you have around you as you get older. And I've said it this way too. I used to admire really smart people. And now as you get older, you admire people who are kind. I want kind people around. There's people that infuse you with energy. There's people that suck you of energy. And there's people that can go either way. You want to be around those people that give you energy, that motivate you to do what's right, and that push you towards godliness. That's the key.
Yeah, I don't know who said this, but I know that in some of our AA meetings I've heard this, but before when I used to drink and do all that stuff, I used to use people and love things. And now that I found that got sober, now I love things and use people. I mean,
Well, some things have not changed.
use things and love people.
But I appreciate the confession. No, I don't admit it.
That's a Freudian. Sorry.
No, I mean, there's a tendency, as we all, I joked before, use family wisely. So, we all tend to use people. There's not a one of us here that doesn't use people at times for our own benefits. Okay, so that happens. But I hope that for all of us, we can look back and say, at the end of life, that our family and our friends want to be around us. They actually want to be near you and want to, be a part of your life because of the the investment you've made in them. Invest in people. Invest in people. And when you invest in people, then you'll have a rich, rich life. I'd rather, I'd much rather be rich in friends than rich in money. I mean, look, if I can be cursed with both, I'm okay. I'm not against riches. May I be spit with it and never recover. But it's not likely to happen. Okay? But, yeah, from my lips to God's ears.